in this next section, we're going to go to, it's a Crowder clip, but it's really focusing on another O'Keefe clip where, honeypots be a thing. And some guy who shouldn't have did, and he did it on tape, and O'Keefe caught it. And it's the admission that these tactics against a political candidate are not because Trump's a criminal. It's because it's lawfare. It's politics by other means. And to have the admission on tape is one thing. To have the guy say, hey, I was just trying to get laid, But in what town is it particularly attractive to a female to talk about boring political lawfare? Unless it's an undercover agent working for Project Veritas. So this guy shoulda, woulda, coulda known better, but now he's famous, and we hereby insert him into this week's time capsule, as he wish he would have inserted himself into another conversation, not the one you're about to see, but let's see it anyway. Let's go to Crowder because he's got the clip.
He was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make the case is nonsense. To perversion of justice. To make him a convict, a convicted felon. It affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon. It's a travesty of justice, a mockery of justice.
Let me be clear about something on the outset. The person you'll be watching today is not the bad guy here. Unwitting whistleblower? Yeah. Nicholas Biasi is the Chief of Public Affairs for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York. Something you may be familiar with, and the most prominent federal trial court in America.
Those felonies did nothing to stop Trump from running.
No, in fact, they made him more relevant.
Did that backfire?
Sure did. And the whole thing is disgusting. They're just out to get him. And that's why, he's surging in the polls. It's a perversion of justice. He was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make the case. No, to be honest with you, I think the case is nonsense. State levels are Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up. And it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
Who is they?
Alvin Bragg, yeah, who I've known for 15 years. He used to work in my office. Before he decided to prosecute Trump, did you know who he was? You do now. I'm not sure what he wants to be, but I know he's not happy just being the DA of New York County. So Alvin's very ambitious. Every real estate person in New York does what he did. Nobody's ever been charged with this. Until him.
Mr. Biasi is just saying the quiet part out loud. The part that unfortunately matters. Lawfare? Yes. Why? Because Biasi openly says so. The ones from Alvin Bragg are a particular perversion of justice. How do you know? Because Biasi says so, and he's known him for 15 years. Election interference? At this point, is there any doubt?
Are those even actual felonies? Because I was pretty sure that
he was stacking charges and rearranging things just to make the case. No, to be honest with you, I think the case is nonsense. Every real estate person in New York does what he did. Nobody's ever been charged with this. Until him. And that's why he's surging in the polls. It's a perversion of justice.
those felonies did nothing to stop Trump from running.
No, in fact, they made him more relevant.
Did that backfire?
Sure did.
And that was that Alvin Bragg's choice to do that? Or why?
Because Alvin's very ambitious.
What do you mean?
He wants to be, something. is like before he decided to prosecute Trump. Did you know who he was? You do now.
What was the point of even doing it then?
To make him a convict.
Make him what?
A convicted felon.
What if he can still run for presidency and...
Yeah, but it affects his candidacy if he's a convicted felon.
I was trying to count the losses. I was like, I wonder like how many are against him. I think it's called lawfare.
Yes.
That's what I have gathered from that.
That is what they call it.
So how does this even happen? How can it happen? How can the local and state level courts try President Trump with more ease and less red tape than the federal courts? That doesn't seem right to the uninitiated, but you are the uninitiated. Good thing Biasi isn't.
I mean, at the federal level where I work, there is a 90-day rule where you can't make any decisions on cases that are going to affect an election. That rule does not apply at the state level because the state level is like the Wild West. They're like idiots. They don't care. They're all political. So yeah, this guy's probably going to try to lock him up, and it's going to be ugly. They're so obsessed with getting him.
Who is they? How do they get away with that?
It's a different system. Like the state level and the federal level are like night and day. It's hard to explain, but like there are so many more rules in the federal level, and they're like the threshold for a crime is so much higher. Like I said, like the state level is like the Wild West of law. It's like very, for lack of a better term, unregulated. Less checks and balances.
And I know what you're thinking. I thought it too. Well, you're talking about one case or two or 19. Hey, if it's local, you break the rules. You pay the piper, or even if you don't, if you're President Trump, pay the piper. But there are other cases in the country. There are a lot of them. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? What about the Georgia electoral interference case, right, that Donald Trump is currently having to face under Fanny Willis, right, the Fulton County District Attorney, who was caught having an affair with the special prosecutor Nathan Wade.
So is that the strategy against Trump? Just hit him with all the legal battles all across, like the Fanny Willis, Georgia stuff. What do you think about that case?
It's a travesty of justice. To put it mildly, it's a mockery of justice. She is a joke. Like her and her boyfriend, she was seeing. The whole thing is disgusting. They're just out to get him.
I guess at this point, the only argument left is why should you trust anything Biasi has to say? Let me make the case. Biasi is an expert. He has firsthand knowledge and experience. And despite how the media is going to try and spin this, he is kind of an authoritative voice as the chief of public affairs for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York. This man knows the players, he knows the game, and he knows that it is rigged.
Who's that? Alvin Bragg?
Yeah, who I've known for 15 years. He used to work in my office. So here's us, here's Alvin. He's county level, and he decided to do the case.
Yeah.
And Michael Cohen is their star witness who we prosecuted.
Okay.
You know who he is? That guy's psycho. He calls me.
What does he want with you?
He's like, he's got this thick New York accent. He's like, is this Nicholas Biasi, the chief of public affairs? And I'm like, yeah, this is me. He's like, this is Michael Cohen. I want you guys, vacate my conviction. I'm like, I can't really, I'm not authorized to speak to victims or defendants, which I thought was a pretty good answer, not knowing who was calling. And he was like, well, who can he speak to? And I was like, the media. And he goes, I have one of the biggest podcasts in New York. But I kind of didn't believe it.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, you're still a defendant, and that precludes me from talking to you.
I've known Alvin for 15 years.
Like, how well do you know him?
I used to work with him for 10 years.
You guys had dinner together and hung out?
No, we weren't best friends.
Okay.
But I mean, like, if I see him, we're like, I mean, we know each other really well, but like, do I respect what he's doing? No. Is he a nice guy?
What about like the other people you work with? Do they know it's all a political perversion?
Yeah. Of course.
Well, Trump stuff?
Yeah.
Well, we deferred on all this stuff.
What do you mean?
We investigated and, decided that, for one thing, there is precedent that you can't indict a sitting president.
You cannot.
You cannot.
Okay.
There is an Office of Legal Affairs rule that you cannot indict a sitting president. It's just too disruptive to the country. So we didn't. But the DA did.
Again, it's important to remember that Biasi is not the bad guy here. I know you're probably mad. Lawfare is a thing. And it's not only happened to Donald Trump, it's happened to many of you watching or listening right now. Some of you don't even know it yet. You don't live in a free country simply because you have laws. You only live in a free country if the laws are applied equally. Otherwise, the law is not a tool to protect a free people. It's used as a weapon to bludgeon the people who perhaps think wrongly. What is the media going to say here? And it's a good thing that this is part of an ongoing series every single week between now and election night in November 2024. This is Mug Club Undercover, the stealing of a nation. There's more to come, but I still expect them to play the same cards. This person's not authoritative. He is. He's speaking out of turn. He's not. He has no first-hand knowledge. He does. This is selectively edited. If you join and go to louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub, you can see it unedited. There's no smoking gun there. It's just boring. You want to watch them order drinks? Some of them are awful drinks. That's the most offensive part in all of this, but it's not my job to comment on that. We've been working behind the scenes tirelessly and have been shocked at what we have found. And we will be showing it all to you every single week between now and November 5th, 2024, the election live stream of the century. And that night, wouldn't it be nice if on that night you didn't see the same tactics that you now know have been going on for the years leading up to it? I fully expect the media to attack the messenger. And if that does happen, well, join Mug Club. This is all.
Yeah, that's a thing. That guy, he wanted to look good for that girl, right? So do you think he's going to tell her things that are not going to turn out to be accurate? And she's going to be like, you told me it was a totally different thing. No, he's going to try to impress her and say, here's what's going to happen in a couple weeks. And then she comes back and says, hey, the thing that you said was going to happen happened. And then she sees him as a man of influence and power. That's more likely what was going on there. So I don't think just because he was in a dating situation that he wasn't telling the truth. And I'm going to offer more evidence to that effect. But before I do, Scott or LD, did you have any, was that surprising to you that he would come out and say that? I mean, his job is public relations. He's used to saying quiet part out loud sometimes. He just didn't know he was saying it to a Project Veritas, or no, I'm sorry, that was Mug Club Undercover. It appears I got it mixed up because there's competing undercover agencies now. There's Mug Club Undercover, and then there's O'Keefe's joint over there, OMG. So what did you guys think of that?
Well, personally, I mean, I think really the only ones that are continuing this narrative that this has any legitimacy or basis in reality and should be pursued any further is like the media. That's it. Like there's no other human being on earth that looks at it and is like, yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I guess the ones that are influenced by the media, the ones that are out there in that article I posted there's like people outside picketing. Thank you for holding Trump accountable. Look at that lady. Like, okay, so she is a victim in all this. She has been brainwashed. Her brain has been taken over. And so they're the ones that are still clamoring for this. But any rational person, again, the people that don't have the Harris signs in their front yard, there's no possible way that anybody could look at this and be like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and look at it other than what it is, which is just election interference. They're trying to do everything they can to prevent him from being president again.
Well, it's more than that. It's this guy, Alvin Bragg, who's an opportunist, who's seen how people got to rise up in the framework that he's working in. And he's like, I'll do some of that. And so he wants to go from being DA to being mayor or maybe governor someday. And the people that he's doing this for, they're going to be very thankful that he, is throwing a stick in Trump's bicycle spokes, which is funny to think about Trump actually riding a bicycle. It's not something you would see. Trump not in a suit. Think about that. Trump in t-shirt and jeans. These are all funny images that come to mind. But we'll get to some of those. The Trump stories are going to come up after we cover Biden, Kamala, and someone who became known to me as Tampon Tim. I wasn't sure if it was a nice thing or what, but then I saw the report and I was like, oh, maybe he deserves to be called Tampon Tim. I don't know. We shall see.
Twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested, in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come